Extreme weather events will become much more intense and frequent as temperatures continue to rise. Is Europe on the right track to tackle climate change?
After a severed fibre optic undersea cable was discovered between Germany and Finland, politicians are saying the damage was deliberate.
Welcome the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, joining us live.
A long ovation for a visibly touched Volodymyr Zelensky.
Thank you so much.
This is how the European Parliament commemorated 1,000 days of war in Ukraine. And in his speech, Zelensky targeted the enemy once again.
You know very well that Putin does not value people or rules. He values only money and power. These are the things we must take away from him to restore peace.
The President of the European Parliament, Roberto Metsola, has insisted on her support for Ukraine before elect President of the United States, Donald Trump, swears into office, after which everything can change.
Today, we send a clear, simple message. We stand with Ukraine until freedom, until real peace.
EU buildings in Brussels had projections of the Ukrainian flag as a symbol of solidarity on Monday. Zelensky has called on the EU to push harder before conditions for his country worsen.
The 5 largest countries of the EU have backed a proposal to issue joint defense bonds to bolster the bloc's defense industry. Poland's Foreign Minister Radek Sikorski said on Tuesday this will help Europe firmly counteract Russia's imperial ambitions.
Rosja Putina pozostanie jednym z najpoważniejszych zagrożeń bezpieczeństwa, nie tylko dla Europy, ale także dla ładu światowego.
The news comes as Kiev hits Russia with US-made long-range missiles for the first time, after which the Kremlin made changes to its nuclear doctrine.
Is Europe on the right track to tackle climate change? Extreme weather events like the deadly floods in Spain will become much more intense and frequent as atmosphere and sea temperatures continue to rise. The General Director of the Spanish Office for Climate Change says the EU is working on mitigating climate change, which involves reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
So we need to work on the path that we have already set, because we have been working in mitigation. We are the most ambitious group, in policies to tackle mitigation. That is the first and the starting point to avoid the impacts and to avoid these floods and these tremendous droughts.
Besides mitigation, the EU is also working on adaptation to climate change. Aparicio stressed the need to find a new framework to be better prepared to these intense events.
The new Commission has a very good opportunity, and the President of the Commission announced a European plan for adaptation, in which all the countries need to bring to the table the different specificities of each region, because adaptation is very local and the impacts are also very, very local.
Risk perception, improving capacity, and education of administrations and citizens are very important elements in the fight with climate change. Experts believe we need to enhance our understanding of climate change and of its social and economic consequences.
Following the French farmers' protests against the agreement between the EU and Mercosur, alarm bells are ringing in Spain as well. As the Spanish government supports the deal, the agricultural sector aims to bring its opposition to the agreement to the attention of politicians.
Rechazamos totalmente la posición que tiene el Ministerio de Agricultura y el Gobierno español, cuando sabe los impactos que tiene sobre la ganadería y sobre la agricultura en todo el Estado español. Impactos muy negativos que van a impulsar modelos de agricultura más industrial, que además chocan y tienen una contradicción total y absoluta con los objetivos del Pacto Verde y la estrategia de la granja a la mesa, ¿no?
Farmers want the Spanish government to acknowledge their demands.
El Ministerio de Agricultura no ha convocado nunca una reunión específica con el sector agrario para hablar de Mercosur.
Pese a las muchas críticas de los agricultores españoles al acuerdo entre la Unión Europea y Mercosur, el ministro de Agricultura, Luis Planas, lo defiende. Asegura que hay mucha mitología, así lo ha descrito, en las opiniones contrarias al acuerdo y que no se ajustan a la realidad. Además, deja la siguiente pregunta en el aire. Escuchen.
Yo creo que hay una cierta mitología en torno a Mercosur que no me parece que se adecue ni a la realidad de lo que es el acuerdo Mercosur ni al momento en que estamos viviendo. ¿Le interesa en estos momentos a la Unión Europea encerrarse sobre sí misma o le interesa el ampliar la red de nuestros acuerdos comerciales con países terceros para mantener nuestra influencia también económica y comercial?
Farmers are responding. They have a message for the Minister of Agriculture.
Pues que el ministro es el ministro y los agricultores somos los que estamos sufriendo estas consecuencias. Si el ministro fuera agricultor o los agricultores fuéramos ministros, te puedo asegurar que estaría junto a sus homólogos franceses y alemanes en contra de este comercio que se piensa firmar. Nos están exigiendo cumplir con unas cosas que cada día son más difíciles, que encarecen más nuestros productos y lo que están llevando es al abandono tanto de la agricultura como de la ganadería europea. Por contra, en estos países de donde se espera atraer estas materias primas, todas estas normas que no existen, es más fácil su producción y su manejo. Además, es inconcebible que Europa, que se crea para la protección de los países miembros, esté dejándonos trabajar en desventaja con una competencia desleal con países terceros.
Spanish farmers are coordinating amongst themselves and do not rule out holding protests. Damage done to two underwater data transmission cables running between Germany and Finland was deliberate, according to the German defense minister. His comments come after the two countries announced they discovered a severed fibre optic undersea cable and that an investigation was underway.
Und ich mag auch nicht an Versionen glauben, dass das Anker waren, die zufällig über diesen Kabeln, wie soll ich sagen, Schaden angerichtet haben. Von daher müssen wir konstatieren, ohne konkret zu wissen, von wem es kommt, dass es sich um eine hybride Aktion handelt. Und wir müssen auch davon ausgehen, ohne es schon zu wissen, versteht sich, dass es sich um Sabotage handelt.
The incident is not the first to involve damage to underwater infrastructure in the Baltic Sea. Over the weekend, a different cable between Lithuania and Sweden reportedly lost service. Countries involved in both incidents said Russia, often considered responsible for acts of hybrid warfare, could be at least partially to blame.
Giselle Pelicot, who was subjected to mass rape by her husband and dozens of other men for over a decade, said that macho patriarchal society should change its attitude on rape. She gave her closing statement to court on Tuesday in one of France's biggest criminal trials in recent history. Pelicot called it a trial of cowardice, referring to the men who claimed they didn't realize it was rape. The abuse was discovered in 2020 after police stumbled upon videos and pictures her husband had recorded of it. The trial could have been held behind closed doors, but Pelicot requested for it to be held in public, saying she hoped it would help other women speak up. The case shocked the country and triggered nationwide protests in her support. A verdict is expected to be delivered by the end of December.
Moldova is deeply polarized among pro-EU and pro-Russian public opinions. A referendum on the accession of the country to the EU displayed that only a tiny majority of the Moldovan people wants to join the bloc. The Moldovan Foreign Minister, Mihai Popșoi, was in Brussels to affirm his government's will to catch up on the EU integration against all geopolitical odds.
Many Moldovans would have liked to be in the same position as our brothers in Romania or like our good friends from the Baltic countries. And Russian propaganda is very instrumental in feeding this narrative that you are never going to be in Europe, that you are second class. But we need to work hard to combat that narrative, to show that we are already a candidate country, that we are already advancing on our European path.
The war in Ukraine has also put Moldova under the spotlights of the international stage. The country played an essential strategic role of logistic hub and rearguard. Due to its pending problems with Russia in its breakaway region of Transnistria, Moldova considers that a simple ceasefire wouldn't be the solution for Ukraine.
Nobody in line with international law can recognize what Russia claims to be its territory now, because it's not. it's Ukraine's territory. And we will look at how the things will develop, but we also are encouraged by the support that we get from our friends in Kyiv. Then whenever the discussion will come, we also hope that the Transnistrian issue will be part of the solution. There are Russian troops and munitions in Moldova that need to leave, and in the context of this settlement, that should also be on the agenda.
The Transnistrian question has been representing a crucial political burden for Moldova's development. The over 30 years old ceasefire between the pro-Russian breakaway region and the legitimate Republic of Moldova has by far proved only useful to the interests of Moscow.
I'm afraid we are not in a position to impose outcomes or suggest outcomes. We have our own frozen conflict for 30 years, and we would certainly not recommend it to anyone.
30 years and 22 Grand Slams later, the moment has finally arrived for tennis legend Rafa Nadal to leave the court. After being knocked out of the Davis Cup on Tuesday, the Spaniard said a special goodbye to fans in Málaga.
Han sido 20 años de carrera profesional en los que me habéis llevado en volandas siempre, ¿no? En los momentos buenos me ayudabais a ganar el siguiente punto y en los momentos malos, sin ninguna duda, pues me empujabais a seguir peleando.
Hola, mi amigo. Tennis opponents and friends from around the world prepared a video for the tennis star, thanking him for everything and wishing him the best of luck in his retirement.